Hello, Warrior Women. Karen McCoy here. And today I want to chat about the real reason you're not seeing success in your body transformation, weight loss, healthy aging goals. We talk food, we talk exercise. Those are the foundational pieces that need to be in place first. That is the roots of it all. Then we add on from there. But one of the areas that I see that causes about 95% of the women out there or people out there to not see results or not to maintain those results is what I call they are in resistance. Okay. There are so many universal laws. And when I take women into my 20-week mastery lifestyle program, we go through those universal laws because it's very, very important. It's like gravity, as I say, if you jump off a building, you don't believe gravity is a thing, you're still going to hit the ground. And so universal laws are at work, whether you know it or not. And it does us well to understand these laws and then to utilize them to our benefit. So I've had 30 years in the woo-woo, metaphysical, spiritual, other area, whatever you want to call it. And it's woven into the thread of everything that I do and everything that I live and am. And it was just natural for me to go there because it's a piece of life that we're not taught. It's not taught in schools. It can be ridiculed outside of school and in school, even in our own families. And I was often seen as that weird girl, or I was, they said I was crazy, or I was imagining things, whatever. And I bought into that and I went the straight and narrow for quite a while until life really hit me hard with some intense life challenges. And the medical field couldn't really help me. And so I went into the metaphysical world and drew on a whole bunch of mentors and teachings and learnings. And I traveled through that world for years. And I can't say any one method got me back to health. It was just an opening up and understanding of source energy, if you will, universal law, whatever you want to call it, God, Shakti, that relationship and connection we have to something bigger than ourselves. And so that is where I started on that path 30 years ago. And it's been forever a lifelong endeavor. And it has truly shaped and reshaped my life and the life of the women that I coach because I bring it into everything that I do. So I want to talk today about probably the most important universal law that I see women need to understand and need to be mentored in using it and understanding the power of it. And this is in the world of body transformation, which is my world as a fitness and nutrition and life coach. But it can be applied actually to any world because universal laws are just like that. They're an umbrella with all of life's experiences underneath. So whether you're looking at relationships or career, business, finances, all that good stuff, making more money, having a better body, then universal laws are at work, whether you know it or not. And when we get to know them, we can harness them and use them. So when we're looking at resistance versus flow, I want you to consider this, and let's just keep it in the realm of body transformation. So do you feel you're resisting change? And has this resistance become a pattern in itself? So we all have self-limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, patterns, conditioning that stem way, way back, and they create who we are. They create our reality, but they're not the reality. They create our belief system and our reality. So a big piece of what I do as a certified empowerment coach is we break that down. And we work through that when I work with women in my program. And in that place, I would say that 99% of the women are in resistance. If they're not in resistance, they don't really work with me because they're kind of ahead of the pack and they know what they need to do and they will do it. But unfortunately, that's the minority. And so it's really hard because we don't know what we don't know, right? So we know what we know. For example, we know we can drive a car. We know what we don't know. We know we don't know how to fly a plane, but we don't know what we don't know. So if I were to say to you, what don't you know that you don't know? You don't know. Exactly. That's the blind spots. That is where coaching comes in, where we can see the blind spots because you can't. And so it's that objectivity, and resistance is usually at the front of the helm. So resistance is where we're fighting what is, right? And for most people, especially when they're stuck in a place where they don't want to be, whether it's career, relationship, or in an unhealthy body, excess body weight, whatever it happens to be, aging poorly, this is where we need to look at where we are resisting. We don't actually need to know why, we just need to know the what. So here's where I just want to read some thoughts here. The most powerful version of you is when you are working and living from your source energy, right? If you are not, the thing that is causing upset and lack of momentum is resistance. So this is a calling to bring your source energy or your soul, your spirit, who you are forward, and you work from there. So this is why I'm always really big on working the inside out, not the outside in. The outside in is the diet, the workout, the Google searches, listening to that girl in the gym, watching TikTok or YouTube. That's the outside in. The inside out approach is where we're going within, and we're making the changes here. It's kind of like we're updating the operating system, right? That's the bigger work. That's what true coaching does. And it's like the operating system on your computer needs to be updated too, or you won't be able to run some programs. We've seen that over the decades that we've been using computers. I certainly have, right? I started out with DOS and started out with Lotus, all that stuff. And it was constantly needing to update to carry the new software. That is what your brain is asking you to do as well. So this is where I would say resistance for many people is their pattern, right? So they're used to resisting. This is where I'll hear women say, if we're talking about weight loss, there's a resistance to it. Why? Because of what they're saying to themselves or what they're taking on as everybody else and the environment is saying to them, weight loss is going to be hard. You're going to have to give up too much. You're not going to have any fun. Or, oh, you've done it before. You're not going to be successful again because you failed before. So all of this is resistance, and it's your pattern. We are meaning making machines. So we put meaning on things. But the good thing is we can change the meaning in a heartbeat, but we're not taught how to do that. We're not taught it in our families. We're not taught it in our schools, right? We're taught to open up and let the knowledge or information come into our brain. And that's telling, that's giving advice. It is not changing the structure and the patterns within you necessarily. So when you push against resistance, you create more of the same. I remember that in my science class. I think I slept through most of it. I did manage to squeak by and and I did pass barely, but that is one thing that did stick with me. So if you're pushing against something, the same force will push back. That is what resistance is. So when you're resisting that ice cream, when you're resisting that piece of chocolate cake, when you're resisting going to the gym, you're building up a wall that's going to push back and create more resistance, going to create shame, guilt, frustration, or checking out, deflecting with other things. Well, I'm too busy. Well, I don't have the time. Well, I had one woman say, I got to wash the windows. Okay. So can you see what's happening there? Well, my windows are dirty. No, it's not about the windows. Let's back it up. Oh, I got it. That's what I do. Exactly. That's the aha moments that we need to have in these moments, right? Because when you push against resistance, you create more of the same. You are strengthening that resistance struggle pattern. And your ego likes that. It really does. So, an example is the Super Bowl, for example, right? So the offense creates plays that don't go against the defense. So they don't run into the defense side to get tackled. They move away from the resistance, right? This is why it's so important when I work with women, we do the 3 M's, mindset, meditation, mantras, right? So when we're doing these things, we are surrendering, we're changing our path, we're allowing. These are our tools, and they're new tools and a new skill set that need to be learned and then rooted in who we are so it becomes a new automatic response. So a lot of time when we think, and this is the time of year when we think you're watching this and this is January. And so you're thinking, oh, I've got to lose that extra 20 or 50 pounds, or I've got to get into a healthy eating program, or I got to get my butt back to the gym. Doesn't have to be January. It can be 4 months before a wedding, or it can be, well, I've got that holiday planned for next spring, so I want to start now, right? So when you do the same old thing, you're going to get the same results. We all know that. That's what Einstein said. And so it really is about if you want differently, you got to do differently. But we don't know how to do differently. So 95% of all people who embark on a weight loss body transformation program will lose their gains, if they even got there, within 6 to 18 months. And then they go back and they repeat, or they might take on a different trainer, or they might try a different diet because Lord knows there's a bunch out there. I'm waiting to see what the new ones are this year. But it's the same pattern. I've got to do this, all the externals. I've got to do this. What are we changing in here? So this is about a cognitive restructuring, a rewiring of the brain. So when we push against things that we don't want, we get more of what we don't want because we're putting that as the focus. Do you see? And we know this in our mantra work. I don't want to be poor. Your brain only hears poor. So it's going to give you more poor. So we have to craft our mantras around a positivity, and there's a certain way of putting them together so that it creates a new energy and a new opportunity for your brain to think differently and connect into creating a different possibility. So this is the brain work that we need to do. So if we don't change the settings in our brain, the resistance causes more pain and suffering, blame, complaining. You can see everybody's doing that these days, and it persists, right? So you must remove it inside of you. This is where I talk about getting into source energy or soul, if you will. Already, I hear my parents going, oh, there she goes again. A little bit weird. Really? So what is it that you are resisting and wish it was different? So create a new plan that allows you to move differently around the resistance. You have to change your resistance pattern, right? You keep pushing up against it, wishing it were different. Then you ruminate, complain to others. It is just increasing its pull, its magnitude, right? When you stay in your resistance pattern, your ego gets a little juice. It likes it. You get a hit that you are right. See, I'm right. It's hard. See, I'm right. It didn't work. We do all sorts of things to be right. The ego likes that. You want to be right to prove them wrong. Poor me, life is hard. Things are harder for me, blah, blah, blah. My body's different. It must be aging. It must be hormones, right? So it is about doing differently. It's not about working harder. So we need to stop running into resistance and thinking that something is going to be different. It's not different until we change it. You must navigate differently. First is allow, stop resisting, and then move your energy, your thought patterns, beliefs differently. Move into the possibility of another way. You may not see it yet, but you must let go of the how. Oh man, how many of you who have done all the self-help books and all of the laws of attraction and all that stuff, and it says, put it out there and then let it go. Don't ask how. Problem is, well, we do. We're like, where is it? It's not working fast enough. How come? Oh, it must be wrong. And then you let go of the focus. So this is where I teach walking as if. Whatever it is you want, you can't just sit and meditate on it for 20 minutes and go about your day for the other 23 hours and 40 minutes. You have to seep it into, drip it into your entire daily life. Walk as if you already have that which you want, because then what it does is it creates an opening, a new meaning, a new opportunity in your brain to see things differently, right? This is about surrender, and it is the hardest for human beings to do because it's scary, because we are about control. And we are about being in the crowd and joining the crowd because there's safety in the crowd. And that is why I see so many women, so many people, but in my world of fitness and wellness and weight loss, so many women regurgitating the group think of everything out there that says it's going to be hard. You're not going to like it. You're going to lose friends. You're going to lose your social life, or it's not going to work. Your body's different. It's now aging. All of this stuff is just resistance, and we need to create a new verbiage, a new language, a new understanding of the possibilities of what's there, because it is not about the food or the exercise. It's not about aging or hormones. Those are not the problem. They're the symptoms. The problem or the challenges within. So we cannot work against the flow of life. We are to live in ease and flow. We are to live in our truth. So it's like getting out of a riptide. If you've ever been in a riptide is where you go out and it's that twirling thing, and it's just off the shore. And it can be very scary because it's very tight. And in where I live on Vancouver Island, occasionally I've seen eagles caught in a riptide because they went down to get a fish and they got caught in this twirl and they are trying to get out. But it's like quicksand. The more you try to get out, the deeper you go in. So what they need to do, and I saw one eagle do this beautifully, he sat and waited. Where did he learn how to do that? He sat and waited, and it went round and round and round. And then eventually, what happens as it moves along, it loses its flow and pull, and he flew away. So this is, if you wait and sit it out, there is no resistance because it's then moving out to sea where it weakens and you can slip out the side and swim to shore. And the other example I have was when I was visiting my family in Canmore, Alberta, and I live on Vancouver Island. So I drove in October thinking it was my sister's 50th birthday. And I thought, this will be great. I can stay there and enjoy her 50th. And so we had a great celebration. And I was heading out the next day, but there was a big snow warning coming up on the news saying, oh, it's going to be a big snowfall. It's going to be big because this was the end of October. And I thought, I'm going to get out ahead of the crowd. I got to get out early or I'm going to be stuck. And my drive is 14 hours away. So I got up at 4 a.m. and started to drive. Well, the snow beat me to it. And here I am driving in my car. And I got as far as the circle at Banff. So it's a traffic circle outside Banff. A lot of you probably know it. So I had traveled about half an hour in snow. And then I'm going around this circle. I went off the traffic circle down into the deep snow. And I remember thinking what my father taught me, but it's a natural way to be. He said, don't turn your wheels against, don't put on the brakes. You need to move into where you're steering or where your car is going in order to right it, to bring it back. And I thought, that sounds crazy. But if I put on the brakes or if I turn hard, I'm going to be stuck here. And I would have been stuck there forever because it was over a foot deep. So I went down and I was veering off into the woods and I put my wheels that way. But as soon as I put my wheels that way, I realigned with the natural flow of the wheels. And then I was able to slowly turn it and come back. And I came back up over the bank onto the highway. And I continued my drive home and I got home. And that's a perfect example of moving into flow. If you're in resistance, if your thoughts are in resistance, you're going to get more resistance. This is where the mindset, mantra, and meditation work is important because it gets you into flow where you're in the natural course of momentum, and your momentum then can take off into your success vein, whatever it is that you're after. And in our world, it's a healthy relationship with food, it's appropriate, sustainable weight loss, and it is aging well so that we live with vitality and we live with strength and we live with purpose. And that is what we do in my mastery program. So universal law number one is learning to surrender so that you are in flow with the universe and not in resistance. Resistance is control. Resistance is staying with the group because we're afraid of stepping out on our own. So we're afraid of that independence. And I see this a lot in the health and wellness field where everybody's doing the same diet. And then next year, everybody's doing the same diet again. And then there's another diet. And coaches and trainers are doing that too. I'm like, it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy out there right now. And it's going to get worse. So this is where we got to bring it all in here into the universal law of surrendering to what is so that you're not in resistance. And if I just may share this final one with you, my beautiful son, Tristan, many of you know, was diagnosed when he was 5 years old with muscular dystrophy. It's Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So in those years, I had a very hard time coming to terms with this degenerative condition that my only child was going to have for the rest of his years and how to cope with that, because eventually he lost the ability to walk at age 10. And then, of course, all the other things that he was able to do gave way. He could no longer feed himself. He could no longer breathe on his own. And so this has been the journey thus far. And I had to learn, because my health took a downward spiral because I was in resistance to it. I'm like, how can this be? This isn't fair. This is too hard. And there was always something new to give up. There was always more of a downshift in his abilities and what he had to surrender. No riding a bike, no skateboards, not even wearing shoes anymore. So it has been a constant surrender, but that has been the greatest gift for me, is to learn to surrender. And I think the universe made sure that, oh, you're really going to learn this one because you're going to be in a situation where you're constantly going to learn it over your life. And it has become my best skill set because there's no resistance anymore, but it is an acceptance of what is. Now, this is on a much bigger scale than preferred weight loss and body transformation. I get that, but it is the same energy at work, just at a higher level is all. And when you surrender, you're opening up to what is and not making it wrong. So when you're trying to lose weight and you're feeling hungry, don't make it wrong. When you're going to the gym and you feel like it hasn't been a great workout, or you needed to do more, don't make it wrong. Just let it be as it is. Move into the action again, move into that place again. And pretty soon you are redefining and recreating the wiring in your brain that says, this is a possibility. I can do this. I don't need to follow the majority. I'm always saying, if the majority is doing it, it's a good reason to not do it, because they don't have it right and they are living unconsciously. I'm sorry, majority, but you are living unconsciously. You're not present. And you're not living from source energy. You're living according to the externals, the environment, and life is happening to you instead of life is happening for you. Very big difference. So this is where I will say, okay, so you fell away from your diet plan, you gained 2 pounds. Now, I can either hear in their language, they're going into resistance. Why did I do that? I don't understand why I did that. I'm so stupid. I know better. I've done this before. It's not working. That's resistance. We're going to take that. We're going to break it all down and we're going to move over here and get you back into flow, right? And it's like, all right, so that doesn't mean failure does not define your success. And it's not failure. Failure is feedback. That's all it is. So what happened over here, and this is the coaching piece, what happened over here, where were you? Okay, let's take a look at this. And we remodel it so that it's stronger and brighter on this side. And we're back in flow. That is the cognitive restructuring that is required. Surrender, accept, see what you're doing, see what you need to change, and move back in there. So I hope this video was helpful to some of you, and I'd love to hear your comments on this. All right, guys, remember to always surrender and always work on living in flow. Notice your resistance. Ask, why is it there? Ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this? Or what muscle am I being asked to use, which is different than why do I always do this? And then move back into flow. And you will live in direct connection of energy source in alignment with all of life and where you want to be. Okay, ciao.